Today I'm going to talk about some of my favorite heroic characters from the Souls games. I'm going to go over their backstory, lore, and their most heroic feat to find out which one was truly the best hero. And without wasting any more of your time, let's get straight to the video. Ludwig was the first of many hunters of the Healing Church, many of whom were clerics. Clerics often became the most hideous beasts. Under Ludwig's command, the Healing Church formed its own group of hunters. He trained them to be disciplined and honorable, even teaching ordinary citizens of Yharnam to fight the plague together. Ludwig wielded a magical greatsword he found, which let him tap into cosmic powers. He followed the sword's guidance, trusting the small lights around it to ease his fears during hunts. The sword itself seemed to have a will, which strongly influenced Ludwig. Despite his success, some criticized Ludwig, calling him a beast-crazed madman. He endured so much disrespect from those who disagreed with his ways. Eventually, Ludwig gave in to the bloodlust and turned into a monstrous beast mixed with both horse and man. Trapped in the hunter's nightmare, he lost all sense of himself and in a blind rage slaughtered so many beasts and hunters that he created the blood river flowing through the nightmare. The reason why I put Ludwig here is because sure, he might have become a bit bloodlusted at the end of his life, and he was part of an organization that distributed the old blood, which meant that they were the cause of the outbreak, but he was still one of the few people trying to protect Yharnam. And to his defense, I don't think the game stated that he knew that the blood would be as dangerous as it is. But again, despite him coming off as a hero at first, he was just mostly trying to fix issues that was caused by his own organization. So again, that's why I placed him here. At first glance, Diallos doesn't seem like much of a hero. He's arrogant, obsessed with his noble status, and spends most of his time talking about avenging his servant, Lanya. Yet when the moment comes, he does nothing. He's a man full of words but without action. But that's what makes his final moments in Jarburg so important. Diallos could have gone down as just another failed noble, but in Jarburg, he finally finds a purpose. He chooses to protect the living jars, who are strange, fragile beings that most would overlook. And when the invaders come to destroy them, Diallos doesn't run, hesitate, or wait for someone else to act. He stands his ground and fights, giving everything he has to protect them. When you find him dying, he questions if he really made a difference. To him, he was never strong enough, never brave enough. But to the young Jar that looks up to him, he was a hero. That's what makes Diallos' story so tragic yet meaningful. He never saw himself as a great warrior, but in the end, he still did what a hero does, and he put others before himself and fought for something bigger. He may not have been the strongest or the most legendary, but sometimes heroism isn't about winning. It's about choosing to stand and fight even when the odds are against you. Diallos may not have believed in himself, but in the eyes of those he protected, he was a true knight. The Abyss Watchers were once elite soldiers tasked with defending the world from the Abyss, a dark corrupting force. They were inspired by the legendary knight Artorias, who was the first to be sent to battle the Abyss. Artorias was a hero who fought Monos, the father of the Abyss, in an attempt to stop its spread and save Princess Dusk. His bravery and sacrifice left a lasting legacy that inspired the Abyss Watchers to follow in his footsteps. At some point, the Abyss Watchers became Lords of Cinder, powerful beings who were given the mission to rekindle the first flame. This connection seemed like it would make them even more capable of fighting off the Abyss. However, that wasn't the case, unfortunately. When the Ashen One encounters the Abyss Watchers, they are locked in a brutal battle, not with enemies, but with each other. Sadly, they all succumb to the very darkness they have sworn to destroy. The Abyss had consumed them, driving them mad and turning them against one another. Despite their tragic fate, the Abyss Watchers were seen as heroes and were respected by many. It's a sad irony that they fell victim to the very evil that their hero, Artorias, also failed to defeat. But again, despite their tragic fate, the Abyss Watchers were seen as heroes and were respected by many. They literally put their lives on the line to stop the Abyss from spreading across the lands, and in my opinion, that makes them really great heroes. Now let's talk about the Golden Boy himself, Mr. Perfect, Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn set the standard of what a true ruler is like. He was loved by many, including his siblings, as there is a statue depicting him cradling a younger Melania and Miquella. When he died, this caused many people to mourn his death. His death was also the catalyst that led to the shattering of the Elden Ring, as his mother Marika was devastated and depressed. This led to the demigods going to war with each other, and all of that led up to us, the Tarnished, coming back. Now, back when he was alive, there was an attack on the capital by the ancient dragons, and Godwyn defeated them with his army. However, he befriended a dragon known as Fortisax. It wasn't only Fortisax that was befriended, but also Lanciacs as well, who started teaching dragon incantations at the capital. Okay, so there aren't many feats for Godwyn's heroism, apart from defending the capital, and he can also use the fact that he was beloved by many people as a way to hint that he was, a great hero. But I think the lack of knowledge we have about him made me place him at this spot. Again, he could have been a great hero known for a crazy amount of things, but because we aren't given a lot of info about him and his personality, it kinda makes it hard to place him super high. The only thing we truly know is that he seemed to be a really noble guy, but that's it. But still, being able to not only hold off but make peace with the dragons that were attacking the capital was such an incredible feat on its own that I still had to place him somewhere in the middle of this list. Now when it comes on to the best ruler in Soulsborne history, I have to go with Isshin. Isshin is a powerful warrior, even in his old age, but when he was young he conquered many people, and some of these people ended up serving under him after defeat. Many years later, Isshin would make Genichiro the leader of Ashina, but due to Isshin's old age and illness, the Interior Ministry who were working with Owl saw this as a chance to invade Ashina. This was because Owl wanted to rule over the land for himself. Now, there isn't a lot to say about Isshin's time as ruler, as there really isn't anything blatant that I found on how good or bad he was. It's true that Isshin in his earlier years was a warmonger, but I like to think that he was a really good ruler, as it seemed that under his reign Ashina was thriving, or at least super normal compared to the rest of the other kingdoms I've mentioned. And as a person, despite his warmonger ways, Isshin seemed like he was a really noble guy, as not only did he take in Genichiro and Emma, who were both war orphans, he took care of them and honed their skills. He also allowed people who have defeated him in battle to serve under him, which shows that he isn't some ruthless killer with no heart. And let's be honest, if he was, then he would have been taken over by Shura, who in the Sekiro verse is a demon that bloodthirsty killers become. Now, what made Isshin's heroism stand out is the fact that he was a good ruler, and compared to the rest of the monarchs in the Soul series, he's by far the best. He never really went out of his way to persecute a specific group of people. There also seemed to be no major issues under his reign as well, as everyone in Ashina was probably just chilling. Sure, there might be some conflicts here and there, but I don't think it was bad compared to what some of the other rulers had to go through during their reign. But yeah, his heroism stand out to me as he was able to take over Ashina and actually made it a better place, at least for a while before his passing. Speaking of Abyss, now let's talk about Knight Artorias, who's the most well-known hero on this list. Artorias was one of Gwyn's 4 knights, and he was given the task to go to the town of Ulusil. Why? Well, because the town and its residents were taken over by the Abyss. He was sent there to ward off that said Abyss, defeat Monos, and rescue Princess Dusk. He went on this mission with his trusty companion, Sif the Great Wolf. However, things didn't go as planned. As you see, Monos is way stronger than they thought, and he did a lot of damage to not only Artorias, but Sif as well. Now, Artorias had a shield that can ward off the Abyss, but he chose to protect Sif with it instead, leaving himself vulnerable to the Abyss, which unfortunately later corrupted him. The last time Artorias was seen was outside of the township, and as you can see, the Abyss drove him mad as he's no longer himself. Now, some of you who haven't played Dark Souls 1 or maybe not so familiar with the lore might be asking, well, why does the Abyss Watchers and many other people think of him as some great hero? I mean, they even refer to him as the Abyss Walker. Now, another question you might have is, if not Artorias, then who stopped or at least slowed down the spread of the Abyss? Well, it's us. You see, we went back in time and basically finished up the job by not only killing Monos but also rescuing Princess Dusk. However, since we got no cloud, everyone thought it was Artorias. But despite that, Artorias still gets my respect as a heroic figure because of his selfless actions. He willingly chose to go to the bed of the Abyss, not with an army but with only him and Sif, knowing that the chances of him coming back intact was slim, but he still did it anyways. And when he knew that Sif needed protection, he chose to use the only thing that can repel the Abyss to protect Sif instead of himself. So even facing death's door, he's still selfless. The Ivory King once ruled Eliam Lois, and his roots are believed to lie in Farasa, where he served as a high-ranking knight, known for his compassion and strength. He was known to always defend his people no matter what. One time Alsana, a child of the dark, a fragment of Monos, sought refuge in his kingdom. He offered her protection even though he probably knew of her dark intentions. At some point, ancient chaos was discovered beneath the land. The Ivory King used this powerful soul to build Eliam Lois and contain the chaos. A cathedral was constructed to quell the flame, but it couldn't be pacified. To combat it, knights and golems were stationed throughout the city, while others were sent into the depths of chaos. Unfortunately, none of those knights returned. Sensing the decay of his soul, the Ivory King left without a word, entrusting everything to Alsana. He ventured into the chaos and, along with his knights, was consumed by the flame. After his departure, the ivory gates opened and Eliam Lois fell into ruins, growing cold and lifeless. In my video ranking the main monarchs of the Souls games based on how good they were, a lot of people wanted to see the Ivory King on the list, and after reading through his lore, I can see why. This man was genuinely a great guy that wanted to protect his kingdom and would literally sacrifice himself to do so. He can even see the good in people as he prevented Alsana from being another Nashandra in terms of evilness. It's no doubt that he's a hero, but at the end of the day, he did sacrifice himself to protect his kingdom, even though it did go to ruin shortly after, which is a bit sad. What's even worse is that the Ivory King was taken over by the ancient chaos, and now you and some of his former knights have to put him down for good. While this may seem a bit tragic, the fact that this man was able to turn a daughter of Monos into a good person and sacrifice himself to what's basically hell itself just to protect his kingdom makes me respect him as a heroic figure, and that's why I placed him at the #1 spot. And that was it for the most heroic Souls characters. If you liked this video, then hit like and subscribe. If you disagreed with it, then you can leave a comment down below. Anyways, I hope you guys have a good one.